Welcome to another edition of Daily Airline News, focusing on the loss of Air India Flight 171. I'm Geoffrey Thomas, and I'm delighted to say joined once again by my co-host Richard Godfrey in Frankfurt. Good morning to you, Richard.
And good afternoon to you, Geoffrey.
And it's Father's Day here in Australia, so yeah, it's a good big
Oh,
day. Yeah, I've been
ha-
waited on
ha-
hand and foot.
happy Father's Day.
So today's episode, viewers, is Tentative Conclusion. It's episode 206. And Richard, as we expected, your probable cause analysis has provoked a significant reaction with over 500 comments, over 2,000 likes. But before we get into the questions, viewers, if you like what we are doing, please subscribe to us, or better still, join our community to support responsible journalism. And please like us, and of course, keep all those great comments and questions coming. We love them. And before we start, Richard, you'd like to make a slight correction.
Yeah, but an important one. In episode 205, Probable Cause, I talked about the FAA Special Conditions document and an FAA Airworthiness Directive, an AD. The FAA 25-359-SC specifies the special conditions for a Boeing 787-8 with lithium ion battery installations, and the AD is the FAA 2013-0333. I incorrectly called the FA document 25-247-SC in the episode. We actually included the correct document 25-359-SC in the description below the episode, and we're going to include that in today's episode in the description below this video as well, together with the relevant ADs. So my apologies for getting that wrong in the episode on probable cause. And on that note, we've said many times that the only authoritative source is the Boeing documentation. And YouTube channels, including ours, are not the authoritative source of information on the Boeing 787-8. And we can make mistakes, and we will issue corrections when we do. We published our plausible hypothesis 4 weeks ago now, almost. We published a probable cause 2 days ago. And in accordance with today's title, this is a tentative conclusion. It's still a work in progress. And we do not have the FDR and the CVR and the maintenance logs to be able to prove what we're saying. And new information on the electrics and the hydraulics and the aircraft systems comes to light all the time. We're planning an episode on the landing gear and its retraction and extension. We're creating a video of the APU battery venting event and an episode on the smoke seen at takeoff. We're also planning an episode on the wiring in the aircraft and how that can be affected by wear and tear and maintenance procedures and various hazards like fire and smoke and corrosive materials. So bear with us, we're on a journey.
Yeah, we sure are. And of course, we're getting tremendous input from experts, our expert viewers, pilots, engineers, aircraft designers, maintenance experts. It's really becoming a real community, is it not, Richard?
Yeah, it's fantastic. And
Yeah.
I feel like I can't put a foot wrong, or not even a toe wrong. Or so anyway, keep those lovely questions and comments coming.
Indeed. So, Richard, let's kick off with some observations. Bill EHR 694. He says, years ago, I had posted that when these batteries fail, they must fail safely. and corrections were made. But proactive maintenance alone can prevent many undesirable conditions. Again, proper and proactive maintenance can prevent disasters. Gentlemen, you have proven that the 787 is an incredibly safe aircraft, well engineered. Ultimately, continuous proper maintenance is the key to safe and continuous operation of any aircraft. And John Potter, Kilo 8 Romeo, a very interesting episode indeed. I particularly appreciate Richard's extensive explanation of the whole sequence of events from rotation to disaster. They sound entirely logical to me. Thank you both for this first-rate piece of education. And Martin Trudeau, 6948, this is plausible probable cause hypothesis, and I agree with Richard. This could be what happened. It makes complete sense. So, Richard, some supportive comments there.
Yeah, indeed. Very supportive comments. And thank you very much for each of those comments. And I think Martin Trudeau sums it up quite correctly. And this is a plausible and probable cause, and it's a hypothesis. The investigators say they successfully downloaded the FDR and the CVR data. If this is the case, why don't they publish the data? For example, the aircraft systems on a Boeing 787-8 have a primary, secondary, and alternate mode of automated flight. Primary is the normal operation with full automation. Secondary is fallback logic when a primary source or a channel fails. And alternate is sort of the last ditch or degraded mode, maintaining and retaining safe controllability, but with the minimal of functions. There is no mention in the preliminary report of whether the aircraft was in primary, secondary, or alternate mode. Investigators rely on these mode change flags to reconstruct the timeline of an incident. The FDR data is available, and the preliminary report makes selective disclosure. And I wonder why the report is stripped down to what the authorities believe is minimally necessary to outline the event. And it appears to me that political and reputational considerations has resulted in a selective presentation.
Yeah. And of course, the whole situation was exacerbated by the fact that it took 2 weeks to download it.
Yeah.
If they'd sent it to France or the United Kingdom straight away, where the proper facilities are in place, they could have had an extra 2 weeks to put more effort into that report.
Yeah, indeed.
So, Richard, we've got an interesting observation here from Rodney Stagg, 1865, and he titles it Evidence of an Intermittent Fault in the E-Bay on AI-171. He says the HSTA breadcrumb. The AAIB, in fact, he says Air India, but it's the AAIB, didn't mention the horizontal stabilizer trim actuator, HSTA, in the preliminary report for nothing. This was a throwaway detail. It was a breadcrumb. On the Delhi-Islamabad leg, the jet showed signs of an intermittent stabilizer trim fault. The aircraft behaved erratically, like it was trimming nose up and then nose down when commanded, forcing the crew to fight it. Maintenance logged no fault found because the glitch cleared itself. So why did Air India, and again AAIB, highlight HSTA? Because it proves there was already evidence of a fault in the EE bay. First, it showed up as a trim misbehaviour. Then on AI-171, it may have escalated into fuel control or electrical problems. In other words, the crash wasn't out of the blue. The airplane already had given a warning, and the HSTA entry is the clue. Regards, Scooter. Richard.
Yeah, you're quite right, Scooter, to point out that the aircraft was already giving a warning. The preliminary report says the crew of the previous flight, AI 423, had made a pilot defect report, and the status message stab pos transducer in the technical log, stabilizer position transducer. The troubleshooting was carried out as per FIM by Air India's on-duty AME, and the aircraft was released for flight at 0640 UTC. Now, the stabilizer position transducer records the horizontal stabilizer trim position. It's not the actuator, but it's obviously connected. The stabilizer trim actuator is an electrically driven jack screw on the 787 and moves the entire horizontal stabilizer leading edge up and down to adjust a pitch trim. The transducer and actuator are located in the tail, not actually in the aft EE bay, but right back at in the tail of the aircraft. And there are indeed other clues from the previous flight. The emergency lighting was flickering. Passenger cabin electronics were not working. And the air conditioning was not working. So a long list of clues, I think.
Mm, there were. And Paul wants clarification. Good analysis, gentlemen. I'm Paul. Correct me if I'm wrong. The APU battery on the Boeing 787-8 is located just behind the wings on the right side of the aircraft in the aft electronics equipment bay under the main cabin floor. The aft EAFR is located 1,847 feet from the nose of the aircraft in close proximity to the rear emergency exit doors on the 787-8. The preliminary report provides side-by-side pics of the aft and forward EAFRs showing significant impact and thermal damage on the aft EAFR. Is it possible that the damage on the aft EAFR had been caused by post-crash impact and fire? Richard.
Yeah, the aft EAFR is located 1,847 inches. It's
Oh,
not feet. That
sorry.
would be about a mile.
Sorry, it wasn't
Anyway,
clear. Yes.
yeah,
Thank you, Richard.
one comma or two commas.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Paul, unfortunately, it's a little bit more complicated when you dig into the details. Boeing defines aircraft geometry using three orthogonal reference axes. The first one is STA, which you're quoting, STA 1847. That stands for station. That's the longitudinal axis, measured in inches, not from the nose, but from a defined reference datum called the nose reference point, or STA 0.0. Then they use WL, which is the waterline. That's the vertical axis measured up or down from the horizontal plane. Usually, the reference is the ground the landing gear is sitting on. And the third one is BL, the buttock line, which is the lateral axis, and that's measured left or right from the center line of the aircraft. And these three together, the STA, WL, and BL, give a coordinate system for every structural element and system installation. The preliminary report states the EAFR are fitted at two locations, one in the tail section at STA 1847 and the other in the forward section at STA 335. The Boeing documentation outlines all of these dimensions for a Boeing 787-8. The nose reference point, STA 0.0, is, as I say, not the tip of the radome at the nose. It is a virtual point in front of the tip of the nose. The reason they do that is just to make sure every STA is a positive number. They actually keep the 787 datum as a secret. It's proprietary. And on other Boeings, it's the same story. The 737, the STA is about 50 inches ahead of the radome tube. On the 747, about 100 inches ahead of the nose. The 767 and 777, it sits well forward of the radome. And on the 787, the STA 0.0 point is 127 inches ahead of the radome tip. The aft EE bay is located behind the wing, as you say, and behind the main landing gear wheel well, and in front of the aft large cargo door and bulk cargo doors, and where the cargo containers and the bulk cargo are held. The forward flight recorder at STA 335 is just in front of the forward EE bay and above the nose landing gear wheel well. And the aft flight recorder at STA 1847 is just under door 4 towards the rear of the aircraft. And we know the forward flight recorder survived and was readable. But the aft flight recorder, as you say, was badly damaged. Both the casing and the crash survival memory unit inside the casing. So one picture in the report shows the forward relatively intact EAFR in its original casing. The other picture shows the aft EAFR, just the memory module, and the casing is gone in the picture. And when you consider that the aft EAFR is designed to withstand impact, fire, and immersion in water for a long period of time at high pressure, then obviously the casing failed. The forward electronic equipment bay is spread around the nose landing gear wheel well in several cabinets and racks. And the aft electronic equipment bay is also spread around the main landing gear wheel well to below the aft galley at the back of the aircraft, again in several cabinets and racks. The aft EE bay equipment is between 1276 and STA 1377, but there are items like the aft EAFR all the way back to STA 1847. And if water leaks from the potable water system run along the cabin floor and the seat tracks towards the rear of the aircraft, they can reach anywhere from STA 1276 to STA 1847. This is 47.6 feet in distance, and when the aircraft rotates at takeoff and has a significant climb gradient, then water will flow towards the rear of the aircraft. If the APU battery containment failed and water ingress occurred, then hydrogen fluoride, HF, is released, and it's released both in gas and liquid form. The boiling point of HF is only 19.5 degrees centigrade. So even in an air-conditioned cabining at, say, 21 degrees centigrade, HF is still above its boiling point and predominantly a gas. If its air conditioning is not working and it's 38 degrees outside and hot tarmac and external air, well, it's well above boiling point and it's entirely a gas and unless dissolved. So under normal conditions in the cabin and even hot conditions, free HF is in the air and in a gaseous state. It is extremely hygroscopic. That means it's very soluble in water. If there's any humidity in the cabin or any water ingress, then HF will readily dissolve in a moisture form, forming a hydrofluoric acid. And this means you can end up with HF gas dispersing in the air, an inhalation hazard, and aqueous HF droplets and forming on surfaces, causing a corrosion hazard. So imagine you've got an electrical problem, you've got a gas phase HF being circulated by the quite strong circulation system in the cabin air, and you've got liquid HF running around drip pans and floor areas and cable bundles and inside equipment bays, highly corrosive to aluminium, magnesium, copper, and any wiring insulation. Who knows where this HF ended up and what damage it caused to electrical connectors and electronic equipment throughout the aircraft. It is a nightmare scenario.
Yeah. And Richard, we have a challenge or two for you. SMOO's View 6103. Great explanation, but one error. If the switches were switched to cut off after the rat deployed and the fire, why did the co-pilot then ask the captain, did he turn the engines off? And he said no. Well, that's what he didn't say that, but anyway, if the switches were turned off as an attempt to engine cycle, why did it take so long to turn them back on, and why the gap between? What is more credible is whatever tripped the rat tripped the interlock that shut down the engines. The switches remained in run until the pilots then cycled the switches, first one to see if it worked, then the other. What is more credible than a battery fire is a tyre fire that slowed their takeoff. At rotate, a piece of tyre flew up into the plane, somehow triggering an interlock system, whether the WOW or something else. And another, Anson Lung, 3234, how a battery failure could kill both engines. The engines can keep running as long as the PMA is running. Richard, I don't think you're going to agree with all that.
Well, the co-pilot did not ask the captain, did he turn the engines off? The preliminary report states, in the cockpit voice recording, one of the pilots is heard asking the other, why did he cut off? The other pilot responded that he did not do so. I do not read the word co-pilot or the word captain or the word engines in that statement. When the rat deploys, it takes around 10 seconds before the system switches to the rat essential bus. For those 10 seconds, the main battery supplies DC electrical power. The main battery only supplies the captain's instruments and displays, and not the first officer's instruments and displays. The first officer was more likely referring, did he, the captain or the aircraft, cut off his instruments and displays at a critical point in the flight? And it took 11 seconds to recycle engine 1 fuel switch because the main battery does not support dual engine relight. You have to wait until the rat is online electrically after 10 seconds, and the engine 1 fuel switch was moved to run 1 second after the rat came online. And engine 2 was moved 4 seconds later to the run position. And we have never stated that a battery failure killed both engines. We stated water ingress into the aft EE bay caused a major electrical problem, likely causing the main fuel pumps to fail, causing a dual engine flameout. The engine shutdown was successfully relit, so there was no damage to either engine, and the engines did not fail. The engines were working fine. They stopped working, of course, when the fuel is no longer supplied to the engine.
Mm. And another request for clarification, Richard, ITO Neuro 3813. I think it's a very important question. Why is the FDR so massively damaged that no data could be retrieved? Fire in the lithium battery is a probable explanation for that. But what I don't understand is why and how does this cause a dual engine failure within seconds? Well, we have
Yeah.
covered that, but let's try and do it again,
Well,
Richard.
let's go through it again. The aft EAFR was massively damaged, but the forward EAFR was successfully downloaded. So the two EAFRs are identical and both record all the FTR and CVR data. The forward EAFR actually records some maintenance data in addition. The APU battery is located near the aft EE bay, and in the event of a thermal runaway, an explosion can occur. There is a titanium tube to vent the smoke and gas to the outside of the aircraft. There is a seal that is designed to break at 3 pounds per square inch to let the smoke and gas escape. If the steel container around the APU battery is compromised by the thermal runaway, fire, explosion, and then water ingress occurs, that, as we've said, will form a corrosive gas and liquid acid. Gas will circulate, liquid will run down the ducting, even as far as the EAFR. Engine failure was caused by a major electrical fault due to water ingress. So our hypothesis is there is a combination of two issues at aircraft rotation: water ingress to the aft EE bay and a lithium ion thermal runaway.
And here is an observation, Richard, from Chris Frobb. Before the trolls and keyboard warriors continue their assault against Richard and Geoffrey's commendable efforts investigating and analysing the cause of Air India 171 crash, I would like to point out that they are doing so using the information and data they have to hand. They fully admit the impact that this can have on the conclusions drawn. With this restriction on available data imposed upon them, I'd like to see anyone do a better job. It's a fact of life that we must work with what we have to hand. I would urge anyone reading and interacting with their posts to consider this before commenting. Couldn't have put it better myself.
Yeah, that's a lovely comment. Thank you, Chris. And you wouldn't believe the comments, but you wouldn't believe the emails we receive personally. There are some really nasty pieces of work out there in social media. And the emails are even worse than the comments. But on the other hand, if people think what we're saying is all wrong and complete nonsense and bullshit, then why do they bother to watch? We're not insisting they do.
No, we're not demanding you watch. So we have another comment too. DS Temp Oz 1. Congratulations to you both on a very thorough and informative investigation of AI 171. The takeaway I get is that the tragedy was caused by thermal runaway from lithium ion batteries in the aft electronics equipment bay, compounded by an explosion or combustion of hydrogen fluoride contamination, which in turn was caused by water ingress into the aft electronics bay. Since Boeing had previously issued an airworthiness directive addressing water ingress, my first reaction would be an assumption of negligence on the part of Air India maintenance procedures. I have also heard it stated repeatedly on your program that Air India has chosen not to release the maintenance logs on their 787 fleet. Why not? Not releasing them only adds to the future negative speculation. I also have a question. Is hydrogen fluoride itself combustible? And if so, was this a part of Boeing's airworthiness directive? I might add that I had originally thought that the smoke seen coming from the left side of the plane during rotation was from debris or dirt on the runway. Thanks to your astute observation in detecting an explosion in the left electronic equipment bay. The fact that Boeing has not issued a new airworthiness directive since June 12 crash would indicate that they do not consider this compound problem of battery explosion and hydrogen fluoride contamination to be a critical problem. Nor do there appear to be plans by Boeing to completely redesign the lithium-ion battery compartment. I watch your show daily and I am impressed with your knowledge and presentation. Thank you, gentlemen. Your thoughts on this one, Richard?
Yeah, the question about hydrogen fluoride gas and liquid, it is not combustible or flammable. It is corrosive, it is toxic, and it is hazardous. And my point was not about whether it was combustible or flammable, but about the effects of the corrosion. And the FAA and Boeing have issued several ADs and SBs on lithium-ion batteries and water ingress. They're two separate issues and handled in different documents. They do not talk about hydrogen fluoride contamination anywhere, however, in these documents. And our point is that the testing to certify an aircraft does include impact and fire and immersion in water and other hazards, but it does not include any combination of hazards. And for example, a fire and water ingress resulting in a corrosive chemical hazard is not considered in the certification process. And our argument is that it should be considered because you can have a fire, you can have water ingress, you can have these individual hazards, but you can also, in a real-world crash environment, see a combination of hazards. And we believe that Air India was a combination of water ingress and a lithium-ion battery fire or explosion. And what we're suggesting is a change to the certification and testing procedures to include the consideration of a combination of hazards.
Now, Richard, John Isley, 4578, he says, other than mechanical errors, the prolonged takeoff roll may be attributed to mistakes made while inputting inaccurate performance data into the FMC. This includes factors such as the assumed temperature for flex-reduced thrust takeoffs, which can lead to erroneous performance calculations, a takeoff weight that exceeds the weight recorded in the FMC, the flap configuration setting, zero fuel weight. All these factors contribute to the miscalculation of V speeds, V1, VR, V2. The list goes on. Great episode once again, gentlemen. Your thoughts on that, Richard?
Yeah, John, well, you're quite correct. And we've had speculation that the takeoff weight, for example, with the massive amount of carry-on baggage could have exceeded what is formally and officially recorded. And any data that is entered incorrectly, the length of the runway, the assumed temperature, the pressure setting, all make a difference. another issue is the first officer may have entered all of that data correctly, but he may have also done a rolling start. And it is normal, as you know, to spool up the engines until they stabilize. And then you select the toga button, take off, go around thrust. The slow acceleration may simply have been the first officer thought he had hit the toga button, but the engines remained at the stabilization thrust until the first officer realized he didn't have the acceleration he was expecting. So the 80 knot call would have been late, and that would have at least triggered uh, selecting the toga button again. The aircraft obviously did finally achieve toga thrust and did take off successfully. So I think the jury is out on what happened on the runway to cause the slow acceleration, the long roll time, and the length of the roll on the runway, all in excess by 30 or 40% of what you would expect. And we won't be able to solve that one until we get the FDR data, in my view.
Yeah. Another observation from Curious Crow, MP4CX, 17 minutes of gold standard analysis. The reported disagreements between AAIB staff, their investigator in charge, and the teams of observers about the pilots being blamed because of the presentation in the preliminary report of the fuel switch actuations, without any explanation why the aft EAFR was so seriously burned as to be unreadable, even though it was thrown clear of the rest of the aircraft before it caught fire. So the EAFR could not have been damaged by the jet fuel's tank's ignition on impact with the ground. If it had to have been destroyed, it had to have been destroyed beforehand. The Sherlock Holmes quote involving the word impossible is, when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth, applies. And the preliminary report failed to note that the aft EAFR's condition was a strong indication that the pilots were dealing with something really dangerous. I have yet to find such a comprehensive analysis about AI 171 elsewhere. Bravo. That's interesting, Curious Crow's observation.
Yeah. And many thanks for the kind words too. And you're quite correct. We are following the Sherlock Holmes deductive process. So we're going through all of the possibilities and have done over recent episodes and trying to eliminate one by one. And then, as you say, whatever you're left with, it doesn't matter how improbable it is, it must be the truth. And we're still, a work in progress, and we're still going through and uncovering other possible scenarios, and we'll carry on until we get to the bottom of it.
Now, here's another comment too from Hari Krishna Tulsidis. The presence of visible smoke and severe localized fire damage provides strong, direct evidence of an intense thermal event that played a causal role. Despite initial reports being inconclusive about the timing and the significant thermal damage to the aft EAFR CPM, designed to withstand temperatures up to 1,000 Celsius for 5 minutes, indicates an uncontained fire that exceeded its protective capabilities. The observed damage combined with the smoke clearly identifies the APU battery as the primary source of ? Richard.
Yeah, well, I agree with the comment from Hari Krishnan, and I would suggest we substitute your question mark with the words a preventable tragedy. And that for me is the saddest of this whole episode, that this tragedy was preventable. It didn't need to happen, and it is too little time to be able to for the pilots to save the aircraft, and it is very sad.
It is indeed. So, Richard, let's conclude with these thoughts. Padre John Ruffle so clearly explained, even without my second coffee this morning. An incredible piece of work, Richard. Yes, you have both ought to receive an award for this work. But it's so sad that such a tragedy had to take place before this hidden peril could be unearthed. The AAIB needs to hire you both as consultants for sure. Yeah, I can't see that happening.
No, I can't see it happening either.
No, PDF Flyer 1. Thank you both and keep up your earnest involvement. These videos will drive the investigation to new heights and accomplish unprecedented investigative outcomes. I hope so. Murphy Johnson 6237 says investigators will need to explain or dispute Richard's conclusion, specifically the smoke coming from the engine right before takeoff. Excellent episode, guys. David Spencer 8233. It's amazing that Richard is able to put together from various sources of data, the aircraft manuals, AD bulletins, etc. Thanks for this episode and many others. I'm sure this will not fly by the authorities and manufacturers unnoticed. There will be consequences. If authorities and manufacturers won't act on their own, it will be legal pressure. But with all this, it should be picked up responsibly. Great work. And finally, KLHJ. Geoffrey and Richard, you two gentlemen are simply outstanding in your analysis, presentation and delivery. Selfishly, it always saddens me when I learn that you will be taking a day off. That is just how much your nearly daily programming means to me, and I suspect hundreds, if not thousands of others. Enjoy your much deserved day off, but don't tarry and hurry back. Well, we are back.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm sure that the viewers have a day off from time to time, so they must understand that we take a day off from time to time. And to the point from David about the manufacturers, well, Boeing some time ago already asked for a copy of our report, and we provided that to them the same day. So, yeah, I'm sure they are reading it with interest.
well, I know they're watching it. In fact, quite a few Boeing executives watch it every day. I do know that because they've contacted me. So, yeah, interesting. So, yeah, look, thank you once again, Richard. Fantastic analysis of the viewers' questions, and thank you for your time in putting all that together. And viewers, we'll be back tomorrow, will we not, Richard? We're not taking another day off, are we?
No, no, not that I'm aware of, but
Okay.
back tomorrow.
We're back tomorrow. So, viewers, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for your support. Please subscribe to us if you don't already. Please join our community. We'd love to have your support for responsible journalism. Please like us. Please keep those wonderful comments coming. We do appreciate them very much. And please keep those questions coming, even if they are challenging. We do appreciate them, and they do help to move this investigation further forward. So, Richard, thank you again for your time.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And I have to say, I do enjoy the challenging questions even more than the easy ones.
Yeah, I know you do. So, viewers, we do look forward very much to your company tomorrow, and have a good Sunday evening wherever you are in the world. Take care.